Alright, this is Spanky the Walrus here, and I have a question for you guys. Do you like Marvel and DC and Star Wars and stuff? I mean, because I do. You can see in my room, I've got tons of cool stuff. Like all my Star Wars stuff. It's hard to point, but there it is. And so I'm a dork, and I love that stuff. But you know what? Marvel has this really cool story of like Ultron. They even have a movie, The Age of Ultron. There's this crazy thing about Ultron. He like becomes like this in this computer. He gains consciousness. He becomes a being, but he's in this one computer. And then he does this awesome thing, right? He starts making his consciousness, his mind, his being goes into all these other computers, right? And so all these servers across the world to where if you were to hurt that one computer, you couldn't kill Ultron because he'd be everywhere, right? But then he does something else. He builds like this robot body thing. And then now you have Ultron just walking on the earth as a conscious being. And what's crazy is this robot Ultron, when he does things and he sees things, he can upload that information to the cloud or to the server or to these other bits of his consciousness. You know, there's other parts of Ultron. And of course, all those other parts of Ultron, they still communicate to that original computer. Crazy, right? All the same person, but they all communicate with each other. They're different, but still they're the same. Now, of course, when Ultron is on the world and in the world and walking and doing stuff and he communicates, we don't question that. That makes sense. Yes, it's all the same Ultron, and we understand uploading the information, right? We get that. That's not complicated. We understand it. We get the idea that Ultron's consciousness is in all these different servers, and they still communicate with that original computer because it's all on the internet. And we are okay with that. Not a big deal. It's cool. No biggie. But guess what? When we talk about God, we talk about the Trinity, we get confused. We start saying things like, well, it's kind of like an egg, and there's an egg white, and there's the egg yolk, and that's like God. But then there's a question, well, okay, Jesus talks to the Father. You have this whole Father, Son, and Holy Spirit thing. How in the world does that work? How can they all be one consciousness, yet talk to each other and be different? That doesn't make any sense until you think about Ultron. See, if you have God the Father, which is like God's consciousness, like who God is, God's person, right? And you realize that, well, God places his being, his consciousness, into like a body, and that body is Jesus, the Son. Now, of course, Jesus is going to upload information to the Father, maybe not through the cloud or through the internet, but through prayer, through communication, and the Father can speak to him. Sure, it's the same person, it's the same being, but in different locations and different bodies, and you could maybe say a different person, kind of, right? Yes, Spanky, but what about the Holy Spirit? How about the Holy Spirit? See, that part of God that's in you and that's in me, well, that's the Holy Spirit. So that part that the Father can speak to the Spirit that is in us and speaks through us and is a part of us. And I think that's really cool. It's a lot like how Ultron has his own consciousness and all these other servers. God has a bit of his consciousness in you. That's the part that leads and guides and directs you and helps you do all the right things. So if you get confused about this whole Trinity thing, remember Ultron. Go watch that movie and take a look at it. I hope it doesn't have cuss words. It might. Well, if it does, then have your parents go beep over the bad words, but get the idea of Ultron, because the old picture of Ultron really, really helps understand the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. It's all one, but it's all different. And it sounds confusing, but I think if you watch the movie, you'll get it. Anywho, I'm Spanky the Walrus. You can see, isn't that beautiful? My little walrus tusks. And hope you kids have a good day. I'm out!